welcome back to another edition of This Week in Throws. I am optimistic about this one actually not being that long. We'll see if I can live up to that. But really, we've got the London Diamond League, which just had a really excellent men's discus competition. And then we've got a smattering of other results here and there. One very exciting news update from Mr. Ryan Crouser himself. And yeah, so we're just gonna get into it and we'll see where the road takes us. We're gonna start in London with the London Diamond League, where men's discus was on the forefront and it lived up to the hype. First, Mikolas versus Christian showdown of the season. And it was a really good one. Mikolas takes the win here in his first Diamond League. Okay, second. I forgot about pre. Second Diamond League of the year. He goes 71-70. This guy is just too freaking good. That is the best throw ever inside a stadium, especially one like London that is like that. I mean, the stadium seats 60,000 people. It's as big of a stadium as you can possibly get. And Mikolas Alekna threw 71-70. He's insane. It wasn't as crazy of a series as he had in at pre, because I think the 71-70 was his only throw on the day over 69. So really it's like embarrassing and he should feel sorry. But yeah, it was a great one where Christian Che finishes runner up at 68-83. Good day for Christian, just didn't quite have it to match with Mikolas. And you just looking at what Mikolas has done now, he's not even a pro yet. Like I think he's 22. I believe he turns 23 in September. And look, when you look at his 10 best competitions now, his average mark in his top 10 is like 71-95 or something. I'm gonna put I did all the math and tweeted a bunch after London, so I'm gonna put these up here. But it's like his top 10 performances ever, the average is like 71-90. Even if you take out Ramona, the average of his top 10 is like 71-06 or something, which is still just ridiculous, especially when stacking up to people who have had a lot more competitions and a lot longer career than he has. And then even going to in stadium, which I mean, you can have a different definition of what constitutes like an in-stadium throw. Because like some of the stadiums in Europe, like technically they are fully enclosed, but they're like pretty small. So it's kind of tough to exactly define what makes a stadium. But by my best estimate, his like average of his top 10 marks inside a stadium, I think is 70-02 or something like that. So he can reliably throw 70 meters inside a stadium. He now is the best stadium mark ever. I believe the previous best was Daniel Stahl's 71-46 from Budapest. So that just says a lot about the era of throwing that we're in right now. But like he's at a point where it's the one thing that's missing is that global gold. And I mean, he has no reason not to win it this year now. Like the field is as stacked as it's ever been, obviously, but like he's proven time and time again he can be the class of the field. Like he dominated the Diamond League circuit last year. He dominated at pre. He's dominated in London against basically all of the top in the world except for Matty Denny. So it's just, Jiminy, like you don't, I don't know what else there is to say about Mikolas Alekna at this point. It's just like he has to get it done this year, it feels like. And he doesn't have to, obviously, because he's 22 and he's got like probably going off his dad's aging curve, he's still got like 20 years of really good discus in him. Um, but it feels like there's not really obviously it's different if it's a situation where like he throws like last year threw 69.97 in Paris. So like if he throws really well and someone beats him, I don't really know what you can do about that. But with the way this season has gone, there's less like defending that, I suppose. Like he's at the point now where even if someone throws really well, he should have enough to answer. Um, so yeah, but I don't want to get too speculative and like looking ahead to Tokyo right now because this is a performance that we can just appreciate for what it is. And what it is the single best throw inside a stadium in world history, which is pretty sweet. For Christian, I mean, it's a good day for him, but he's a guy that's thrown 72 meters 3 times this season. So when Mikolas brings it, you'd want to see him respond a little better. And like he did respond to some extent. His 68.80, his best throw of the day, 68.83 was in round 6. So like that's kind of what you want to see, but he lost by almost 3 full meters, which is not what you want to see. And it's one meet. Christian has proven he can do it at a very high level at Worlds time and time again. So again, not really that concerned. But also, like, I mean, for Christian, like if we're gonna play that game, like Mikolas has an Olympic silver medal. Christian has been to 2 Olympics. He doesn't have any medals. So yeah, you can look at that too. I don't know. There's just so many like different ways you can look at championship performances and like you can really fit narratives to anything you want. Um which is I don't know. It's there's just a lot of ways you can go about things. And the way I am going to choose to go about things is these are 2 excellent men. I think it's going to be closer, especially when you add Maddie in there. It's going to be closer than a 3-meter win when we get to Tokyo, and I'm excited. And they're probably going to go head to head a couple more times. I think they've got like maybe 1 or 2 Diamond Leagues left before Tokyo. So we'll see what happens there, but yeah, this is a rivalry that you just need to relish anytime it happens because it's something really special. Lawrence Okoye was 3rd in this field, 67.24, which is the 5th best mark of his career. And when you look at the 4 that are ahead of that, you have his PB from Ramona this year, and then competitions 2, 3, 4 on his all-time list were all from 2012 and 2011. So outside of Ramona, this is the best mark he's had in 13 years, which is pretty incredible stuff. And I mean, when you think about the era you're in, like it stinks because you see a guy throw 67.24 at the London Diamond League, and any other time you'd be like, wow, that dude like he could be a true like podium contender. Like he might be looking at a medal when we get to Worlds. But in this era, it's like, no, like you need to be throwing 68 high, 69 in a stadium pretty consistently if you want to be like a true medal threat. Maybe that's not the case because obviously Roger wasn't doing that last year before he won gold in Paris. But it feels like even from last year to this year, like the level up has just been so significant. Like we've seen Stahl back over 70. We've seen Denny obviously throw 74 super high and then 70 outside of Ramona as well. Christian's been doing what he's been doing. Mikolas is Mikolas, obviously. Um, it's just so hard to kind of be like, oh yeah. And also like, yeah, like Lawrence Okoye threw 67.24. Alex Rose threw 67.52 a couple weeks ago in LA. Like 67.24 is just not what it once was. Which is just it's a crazy thing to say. Cause like that's a good mark. But it's not really gonna be moving the needle on the international stage. But like that shouldn't take away from what Lawrence did because like this is one of the best performances of his life. So huge props to him. Daniel Stahl was 4th at 66.62. And then 3 days later at a meet in Sweden threw 66.94. He's still, he's like the elder statesman of this bunch. So I'm not necessarily going to get up in arms if he's not throwing 69 every single meet. The fact that he's shown he has it in him is really significant to me. And I trust him to build his season well into a good peak at Worlds. And I trust him to be there fighting for medals, it's really good because, I've talked about it a little bit, but like after last year, it'd be easy to just be like, oh yeah, like Daniel Stahl, like he's washed now. Like last year was the start of the end, and it's going to get worse and worse from here. But in every competition, he's fought back. He's shown us that's not the case, and he's been so much better this year than he was last year, which is really exciting to see. Because I think I've talked a lot before about how Daniel Stahl is one of my favorite throwers in the world, favorite throwers ever. So that's really fun to see. And then Roger Stona was fifth in this one, 64.71. And I made a joke in my tweet where I was kind of like recapping this competition. I was like, good thing he doesn't have to worry about Tokyo, because he really has not looked great this year. And it makes sense because he did an interview with the Inside Lane after the competition where he was basically talking about how like he was kind of planning on going like all in on the NFL. In between the track seasons, coming off the Olympics last year, I believe. So, like, if that was his plan, especially with the transfer of allegiance, or like, yeah, he doesn't need to be super sharp for Worlds in September. It makes sense maybe why we're seeing a little bit of a dip from him this year, but it's kind of disappointing, but also like there's a lot of guys there that are picking up the slack. So it's weird that this year the Olympic champion hasn't really been a factor at all, especially now that he's competed. Like, I think this is maybe his like sixth or seventh competition of the year. So like, it's not like he's just been a no-show. Just he hasn't really been a factor necessarily. Um, but yeah, that's something like he. It's also a weird thing because I became a track fan in 2021 watching the Tokyo Olympics. And so I've never known a season that doesn't have a world championships or Olympics at the end of the year, like as the goal. We're kind of going to figure out, or I'm kind of going to figure out what that looks like next year with the World Ultimate Championships, which I don't even remember what throwing events are there, but it's definitely not all of them. Um, and then, but like Roger is figuring that out this year. And so it's interesting seeing like he's just out there throwing, and I'm kind of curious as to like how he's staying motivated, I guess, without that like big finishing goal like there has been in years past. Um, but yeah, I don't know. That's just something that it's something I think about a lot, honestly, with like and this recording's at 13 and a half minutes already. And I'm not even done with the London Diamond League. So goodbye to the dreams of a short this week in throws. But yeah, like I'm just curious about like what keeps driving them forward. I'm very interested to see how that plays out this year. And I guess for Roger and Rajinder Campbell, I guess it's kind of a preview of that this year. All right, now moving away from the London Diamond League for some other men's discus action. Andrew Evans went to Throwtown Ramona this past weekend, and he's coming off not a great day at Ed Murphy. But I said after that one, I was like, I'm not really worried about that. He comes to Ramona and on back-to-back days throws 65.35 and then 66.99. Ramona is Ramona, but like those are some damn good marks. So I'm still very much not worried about Andrew Evans headed into USA's. I'm going to have a USA's preview coming out. I don't think I'm going to make predictions. Audrey and I talked about it. We agree that might not be a good idea. So I'm not going to make predictions, but I will do a preview coming out in the next couple days. And so we're going to talk more about that there. And then German championships are coming up as well, which I've talked all year about how much fun those are going to be. And it's been a while since we've had like all of the top like 5 Germans or whatever in one competition, but we've seen a couple of good kind of proxy battles, I guess, between Mika Sosna and Steven Richter at essentially age group championships. The last couple or this past week where you saw European U23s, Steven Richter beat Mika Sosna. I think Mika finished in third even behind Marius Karges, who's another really excellent young German thrower. And then at the World University Games, Mika beat Steven. So the World University Games are such a funny thing to me because I have no idea what they actually mean. I feel like it's essentially like a World U23 Championships kind of, but also like Mihailo Kokon and Merlin Hummel were there, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And I'm like, I don't know what the World University Games means. And like there are some Americans over there, like Sierra Jackson is there, Abria Smith is over there, which like kind of concerned because neither one of them really threw that well. And it's in Norway, and I'm like, we're a week out from USA's, like, or no, I think it's in Germany, not Norway. And I'm like, it's a week out from USA's. Like, what are you doing? I don't know. It's a very weird thing. But yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that hammer matchup between Mihailo and Merlin, which turned out to be pretty solid. But yeah, that's so for the Germans, like you have the 5 guys battling for top 2 at championships and then one discretionary spot. You got Mika, you got Steven Richter, Daniel Jasinski, Henrik Janssen, and Clemens Proofer, and then as well as Marius Karges, who I mentioned earlier. So like that's gonna be a battle, and I'm so excited. I think, let me see, Mika really, like neither Mika or Steven really threw that well at either of these 2 competitions, so it doesn't build a ton of confidence. I think Clemens hasn't thrown in a while, but he's just really good whenever he actually does compete. So I think I'll go Clemens and Mika, I think are going to be the top 2. And then I feel like Henrik Janssen is going to get that discretionary spot. So that's going to be an absolutely stacked German team. Like all 3 of them should probably make the final when we get to Tokyo, but we'll see how that plays out. Okay, 18 minutes in, and we're moving on to women's hammer now, where all we got to talk about is Camryn Rogers, who's throwing in Madrid. She went 78.09. Her 3rd time over 78 meters this year. She's so good. And like her season is just like she has 4 of the 5 best throws of her career this year, including 3 of the 4 times she's ever broken 78. And like her season is just ridiculous. 3 times over 78. One of them was almost 79 when she threw 78.88, I believe is what her mark from pre was. And then she's also thrown like 77, 76.9, 76.5. Like every time out, it's just a banger. And that's something that the American women who like I was having this conversation with my new friend Jake at the LA Throws Cup. And like Brooke is the best hammer thrower in the world. Like at her best, nobody is better than Brooke. It's just we don't see her best often enough, and it's a little too inconsistent to really trust it. Whereas Camryn, it's like every time out you can count on something really, really spectacular from her. And like she also benefits from not needing to go through the US championships, which is obviously what got Brooke and Janae last year. But Camryn, like, that's why she won Worlds in 23. That's why she won the Olympics in 24. That's why she's been a contender at the level she is for the past, like, ever since Tokyo, basically, is because she's that good and she's consistent and she brings it every single time. And she brought it in Madrid last week with that 78.09. Also in Madrid, we had women's shot put, where Chase Jackson went 20.27, as well as 20.26 and 20.07. Still not quite 21, but if there's a time she's going to throw 21, might be at USA's next week. Which, I mean, it's going to be a tough competition the women will be there to push her, even though she does have the bye. And yeah, I'm just excited to see what Chase is going to produce there, because coming off of the like 2095 at Ironwood, 2094 at Pre, her next two competitions in Monaco and now in Madrid, not quite at that level, but also you figure she's also probably tapering a little bit, peaking towards USA's. So I think that can be kind of expected. And now just to see what she's gonna bring. I'm also curious, like, with the level she's at and where she has the bye, and even without that, she's so comfortably ahead of everyone else in the US right now. Like, I wonder how exactly her and her husband, Mitch Jackson, and her coach, Paul Wilson, are like approaching kind of the peak into USA's. Um, but she's also just been posting massive practice marks as always. So like I got that tingling, the 21-meter tingle, I think. And God, I hope that happens in a stadium that I'm in, because that would be so cool. Fanny Roos was also competing there, continues her excellent age 30 season, going 1960 to the second best mark of her career. I believe the second best mark in Swedish history. She's now put together, kind of similar to Camryn, like the 5 of the 6 best performances of her life in 2025. Fanny's throwing incredibly well. Men were also throwing shot in Madrid, where Leo Fabri went 21.99, only on 3 throws. And like the way he's progressing this series, 1988, 21.41, 21.99. So if you extrapolate that series out to a full 6 throws, I should say, like he really could have been building to something special. I don't know why he only took 3 throws. Chase only took 5 throws at this competition, I believe. So I don't know what like the setup was, but still a really good day for Leo. He's still responding really well from a kind of disappointing day at Pre. Where like, I mean, he still threw really well at Pre. Like he threw at 21.70. It just didn't quite stack up to the superb days that the 5 guys over 22 had. But it's encouraging to see him just continue to put out these really good marks. And like we know he's just like scratching the surface of what he's capable of and what we saw last year. So I can't wait to see how that continues to develop this year. And Konrad Bukowiecki had another solid mark in this one as well, going 21.20 in Madrid. Not necessarily moving the needle on the global stage, but solid to see out of Konrad, who's a guy that's, been on the scene for a couple years and is just always right there, like making finals, throwing well, blah, blah, blah. 21.20's a good mark out of him. Women's Jav, let's talk another European U23, where Adriana Vlagos, 62.41 to take the win. In this competition, like, she didn't need much more than this. She won by 4 meters, but it's still just like with the way her season started, 66 high, 67 low. She hasn't really come close to that in like 4 months now. And she hasn't had like a flawless record on the Diamond League when she's actually been going against her top competitors, or not just on the Diamond League, but in other like European circuit competitions. So I don't know. I mean, she's still really young. So like it makes sense that she's not like the model of consistency already. And I'm still optimistic about what she'll be able to do when Tokyo rolls around. It would be nice to see some bigger marks out of her on a more regular basis. But like 62.41, I mean that's decent, especially in a competition where she didn't need like a 66. She didn't need to like respond to anyone to answer the call. And she might have if she had to, but for the level of competition it was 62.41. That is a pretty solid mark. Women's discus throw, Samantha Hall of Jamaica got the world standard in Ramona. The same series of competitions that Andrew Evans was throwing at. She threw 64.97, which was good to see. I mean, she made it to the last 3 global championships, I believe. She might have, I'm not sure. I assume she was probably in the quota. but she locks up the standard here, which was 64.50. And at the World Invitational in April, she had thrown, I think, 64.41, was just off the standard, but she smashes that now. Officially locks up her place to Tokyo, so that was good to see. And then men's hammer, the competition between Mihailo Kokon and Merlin Hummel, I had mentioned at the World University Games. Mihailo took the win, 67-10 to, or 77-10 to 77.03 for Merlin. And these guys, I mean, it's just two excellent young European throwers duking it out. The marks weren't necessarily crazy, but they didn't really need to be. And like 77s are still really solid throws. It's, we can get a little jaded by just how well they have been throwing this year, how well Rudy and Ethan have been throwing this year, just like the level that men's hammer is at across the globe right now. But damn, 77s, especially at their age, like at a whatever whatever the age classification for World University Games is, like 77s are still excellent. And then, all right, we got a little news item here. That's kind of done for this week in throws, but for the US Championships, there's a couple pretty significant names absent from the entry list. Raven Saunders, who was second at USA's last year, I believe, at trials, made the Olympic final, obviously Olympic silver medalist from Tokyo before they had to serve a whereabouts suspension. They have not competed at all this year. And they were posting on their Instagram the past couple weeks that, like, I was thinking and hoping that maybe they'd be coming back for USAs because they were qualified, but they're not on the entry list. So for other American women shot putters, a little bit of a sigh of relief if you're like the Abby Moores of the world, the Abria Smiths of the world, the Coco Adelugas of the world. Like you can breathe a little easier knowing you aren't going to have to deal with Raven Saunders. And then also Maggie Malone Harden was not on the women's Jav entry list, which is very interesting because she's only thrown once this year. She threw in the Shanghai Kekiao Diamond League back at the beginning of May. Didn't throw that well, but hasn't competed since then. I haven't really seen anything. I was looking through her Instagram, didn't see anything super like alarming or like an injury announcement. So I guess there's just something keeping her out of USA's though. But she's only one of two American women that are inside the quota right now, with Madison Wiltrout there as well. So Maggie out of USA is certainly interesting. Then the big one was no Ryan Crouser. And I was hoping we'd see him, mainly because my understanding of the USATF rules originally was even if you had the bye as the defending world champion, which Ryan does from Budapest, you needed to show up at US Champs. You needed to compete and give like an honest effort or whatever they call it, at least for one round if you're like on the track. And so when I saw Ryan wasn't on the start list, I was like, does that mean his season is over? Because if he's not there, USATF isn't going to honor his bye, I don't think. And so there's like I was talking with the Sidious group chat, and like they're saying maybe he can get like a medical exemption, blah, 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 blah. And then this morning, I was listening to the Podium Athletics podcast hosted by Hannah England and Rich Newman, and they had Ryan on just a couple days ago. And he was talking about, he was basically giving insight into his elbow injury, which is truly horrifying sounding. Basically, like something in his elbow ruptured, and so there's no fluid in his joint. And so I think that means it's essentially just like two bones rubbing together, which sounds miserable, especially for a shot putter who goes like this for a career. And so that is obviously a reason why he hasn't been competing this year. But USATF did actually change their byline, did actually change their rules. And so if you have the bye, you don't need to compete at USA's in order for that bye to be honored. So I don't know if that's the Ryan Crouser rule. I don't know if they changed it for him. I don't know when this rule change went into effect. But basically, Ryan does not need to compete at USA's, and he can still go to Tokyo. And he confirmed in this podcast he will be going to Tokyo no matter what. He's like, right now, it's not worth it to just like get a cortisone shot and compete for like 6 weeks pain-free, but then I'm in a worse spot. But if it comes to it that that's what needs to be done for Worlds, like he's willing to do that. So he'll be making the trip. He'll be competing in Tokyo. TBD if that will be like his first competition of the year, which is there anything? Ryan Crouser is already the GOAT, obviously. 3-time Olympic champion, 2-time world champion. I think 2-time world silver medalist, world indoor champion, world record holder, yada, yada, yada. If he does this, like winning in Budapest with 2 blood clots in his leg and throwing 23.51, that was cool. Winning in Paris, where he opened his outdoor season at the Olympic trials through 22.80 or whatever he did, and then throws in Paris, still dealing with this elbow issue, wins his 3rd straight Olympic gold. That was pretty cool. If he opens at the World Championships in one of the best, deepest years in the history of men's shot put and wins, that's just like unbelievably legendary stuff. And I really hope that happens because that would be so cool. Actually, I don't know. I kind of hope it doesn't happen because that means we only see him compete once in all of 2025, which would make me pretty sad. But there'd be a lot of aura if he did that. But I'll link the podcast in the description. Definitely go listen to the whole thing because it was like a 45-minute interview. Some good bits in there about WSPS, about kind of his training and motivations at this stage of his career. Lots of very interesting insights in there. They apparently also did an interview with Chase Jackson a couple weeks ago that I have not listened to yet. That is, according to Preet Majithia, a very good listen. So yeah, I'll link that down below. But that news item out of the way, 33 minutes in. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, that's all I've got for you guys this week. It wasn't that busy of a week, but when you spend 17 minutes talking about men's discus, anything can be a busy week. But yeah, that's all I got. Thank you guys for listening, and watching and whatever you're doing. Subscribe, like, comment, follow the podcast on Spotify. Stay tuned for a USA's preview, both here and a written version on Sidious Mag, which will be coming out in the next couple days. USA's is going to be fun. I'm excited. I will see you guys next time. Oh, Paulie throws on Instagram, P. Hoff Mahoney on Twitter. I can't believe I almost forgot that. All right. See you guys next time.